Sports Network.
Oh, it's Wednesday night. That's right. On a Wednesday night, you know what's happening. It is the Dynasty Nerds on the Better Sports Network, the best combination since peanut butter and jelly. We've got an awesome show planned for you tonight. Schedule a little bit different than what we've been doing in recent weeks. We have my good friend Tristan Cook joining us right around 7:20. So join us a little bit later. So I figured let's move things up a little bit. And my guy Jax has already gotten in on it. Let's do some of those start sit questions, some of those trade questions right off the rip tonight. Then we'll get to Tristan. We're going to be discussing how the rookie class is looking so far. And then, of course, we're going to be having my good friend, the man, the legend, Dennis Bennett. He'll be joining us at 10:15 as he does each and every week to finish out the show here on the Better Sports Network. So Jax already has a question. Sedata Fork's already here. So we're going to get things going. I'm not going to waste any time. We don't need a long monologue, intro, nothing like that, because we're here for the goods. And the goods are the content. So let's get right into the content without wasting any time. So Jack says, I have Brees, Henry, and Mixon as my running backs. Is Saquon for Amon-Ra a good trade? Now, assuming that this is a dynasty league and not a redraft league, I love this. Love this deal. I think Amon-Ra right now would be going probably similar to where he started off the year, middle of the second round in a startup. Whereas Saquon Barkley's going closer to the fourth round range, maybe even pushing the fifth at this point. He's not a spring chicken anymore. He keeps dealing with injuries. So to be able to kind of offload a running back that's at the end of his run for a wide receiver that's in a very good offense right now and is still towards the beginning of his run. I mean, we're only in year 3 for Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I would absolutely do it. I would absolutely do it. And I would take Amon-Ra. He said my second wide receiver is Amari Cooper. So, yes, I would definitely want Amon-Ra St. Brown. Parker says, do I trade Gibbs for Ramondre? This one's interesting in the sense that Gibbs, we heard more comments today from Dan Campbell. Once again, just kind of affirming, look, it's going to be David Montgomery. David Montgomery is going to be the lead back. He's going to be the grinder. He's going to be the pounder. And then we're going to bring Gibbs in for different things, gadget plays, receiving stuff, all of that. So with all that, I know it lowered Gibbs's value. And Ramondre, even though he's had a brutal season so far, it's going to be a much easier road. He actually has a fairly easy running back schedule the rest of the way. But all that being said, it's still Gibbs. He's the younger player. I think he's the more talented player. And even though we're frustrated with Gibbs' usage, Ramondre's usage could end up being just as frustrating. We've seen Ezekiel Elliott still pretty heavily involved. So I'm still going for Gibbs. Closer than I'm comfortable with, but still going with Gibbs. Reynard says, yo, what we made with DeMarcado, talking about the running back there for the Cardinals. Interesting development today. Looking at Keontae Ingram is actually the top guy in the depth chart, but those depth charts really mean nothing. I would view those guys as pretty equal. Start both of them, but at your own risk. Either one could blow up in your face. Either one could have a pretty solid week. So there's definitely risk involved, but I'm fine starting either one if you're desperate in your flex position. Who do they have this week? They've got the Rams. So the Rams are no just cupcake either. Nico or Olave? Assuming that this is, once again, a dynasty question, and the answer would probably be the same either way, but especially in dynasty, still got to go with Olave. I know that he hasn't had the huge season that we've wanted out of a guy with his pedigree. And, we thought maybe things would be a little bit better this year underneath the the passing arm of Derek Carr. But things haven't quite been as amazing as we thought. But he's still a first round pick, still a very talented receiver. And I like Nico, but he's more of a guy that I think we would be happy if he got to where Olave is. Olave's that guy. So I am still staying with Olave. And then is it time to panic on Pollard? I think it's a little premature to panic on Pollard. 2 tough weeks in a row, but he's still a running back 1 overall. He's running back 11 right now on the season. So I'm not panicking too badly. And he's got a great matchup against the Chargers this week. So they've been allowing quite a few fantasy football points to the running back position. So I'm not panicking too much. I think Tony Pollard, if anything, if there's people in your league panicking, I think he's a really good contender buy because there's very few running backs getting the total volume between the run and the pass game that Tony Pollard is getting. So I am in on Tony Pollard. I am not panicking on him at this point. All right, William, he's saying 1 quarterback, half point PPR, only have Goff and Howe, was offered Kyler and DK for a 26 first, a 25 second, and Gabe Davis. I am not the biggest Gabe Davis guy. And while I don't really want to pay for a quarterback in a 1 quarterback league, because I'm not sure that at this point Kyler is a huge upgrade over Goff. But that being said, I think the trade is still worth it because if I'm giving up a 26 first, which is forever away, Gabe Davis, who good luck in a traditional league, not a best ball league, good luck in a traditional league, knowing when to start him, and a 25 second, like I might do that for DK Metcalf alone. So if I'm able to get DK and you throw in Kyler as well, I think that's a worthwhile trade. So I would take that there, William. Sedated Fork saying being offered Love, Deontay Johnson, and ETN for Purdy, Achane, and Mostert. So I would not do that deal. Right now, I value Purdy above Love. I value Achane above ETN. And I do value Deontay Johnson ahead of Mostert, but I think the gap between Purdy and Love at this point is pretty substantial. And plus, getting both Achane and Mostert, I get it for this moment while Achane's injured, but long term, you can't start both guys. You can, but you're not going to want to most weeks. So I would, or sorry, I said that kind of backwards. Scratch that. All that to say, I would want Purdy and Achane side over top of Deontay Johnson, Travis Etienne, and Jordan Love. It is close, but I think the gap between Purdy and Love makes me still want the Purdy side overall. All right. Sanders or DeMarcado only this week. All right. So Sanders this week. I mean, Sanders has been pretty brutal so far this year. They are going up against the Miami Dolphins. They've given up a lot to the running back. So it's actually a really good matchup for Miles Sanders. Mercado's going up against the Rams. That's not the easiest one. So I would still go Sanders. Plus, we just don't know what the split between him and Ingram's going to be. We know Sanders is getting a good amount of the work at this point. I know it's been gross. I know it's been ugly. But the matchup kind of dictates that I would rather go with Miles Sanders at this point. Sedated Fork says, totally agree with you. I'm declining. I love Purdy as well. Yeah, I think Purdy, he's shown everything that I would want to see at this point. And could he regress? Absolutely. All of these guys can regress. He's still a very young player. He's still, in some senses, in his rookie year. He only got, 5-6 starts last year, and that includes playoffs. So he's still in his first 17 games. It could absolutely decline a little bit, but he's shown me that He is a solid, steady quarterback. He's going to fit this offense really well. He's going to do everything that Kyle Shanahan wants. And with all those weapons, it's tough not to succeed with all of those guys. So I am still in on Purdy. And Goff, I'm not sold on Goff. He looks okay at times, and then other times he looks like he's really panicking. So I'm not sold on Jordan Love at this point. All right. Any other questions? Let's get these questions in because we've only got a few more minutes until we are going to get my man Tristan Cook in here. So I was offered Anthony Richardson for Purdy and Achane and still declined. That was a better deal. Yeah, especially the injury stuff is concerning me with Rich. I would want, obviously, Anthony Richardson over Purdy, but once you add Achane into that, Achane looks like a world beater. I mean, he just looked freaking incredible. What he's doing in that offense is just hand in glove fit. Total hand in glove fit with Achane and the Miami Dolphins defense. So all about it. I think it's a great move. I would absolutely keep Purdy and Devon Achane easily over Anthony Richardson at this point. And that's no knock against Anthony Richardson. He looks like a fantastic player too. But I'm really, really worried about those injuries that keep seeming to pile up. And who knows when we're getting them back this year? It could be a little while still. So we're going to kind of have to wait and see how that plays out. All right. Another guy that might be maybe a little bit of a sneakier start this week. We talked about him on the Dynasty Nerds podcast, but a team that actually has not been very good against the run, it's been the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore Ravens, you know who they have this week? Tennessee Titans. Now, obviously, Derrick Henry is a part of that. And I shouldn't say they haven't been very good against the run. They've been pretty solid against the run. Not amazing, but solid. But overall to the running back, especially the receiving running backs, are giving up quite a bit in the receiving game to running backs. That's where Spears comes in. So Spears might be a good sneaky start in the flex position this week. A guy that obviously I've talked about like crazy. One of my favorite players actually, he's my favorite player in the draft, this draft cycle. So it's not a surprise to hear me talk about him. We talked about him on the Nerds podcast last night. Rich was at the point that he said absolutely willing to pay a 24 first to get Tyjae Spears. What about you guys? Are you guys willing to pay a 24 first, assuming late, but would you pay a late 24 first to get Tyjae Spears on your team? Renard says, I have Mingo on my taxi squad. Good to put him in my lineup. I have made the series so far. I don't know what you mean, but I've made the series so far. But Mingo this week, he's an interesting one. I don't know that I'm quite ready to throw him in my lineup. It is a good matchup against Miami. It would depend on who else I'm trotting out there. Because and it also depends, are you able to move guys up and down from your taxi squad? Some taxi squads, once you move a guy up, he has to stay there. Others, you can kind of move him up and down at will. So I guess that would kind of determine a little bit of it as well. But that would be my question. So depending on who else you have, I would consider it. I would definitely consider putting him in. But I think that there's other players that, like even on his own team, obviously Adam Thielen, but I'd probably still start DJ Chark over him at this point. Guys that, could be interesting, like Mooney against Minnesota is another one that I kind of like this week. Marvin Mims against Kansas City is another one in that range that I kind of like a little bit. So I'd be curious to hear who else you have currently at this point. French is my first language. Oh, sorry, man. That makes sense. He said, great, I have Chark. So even better. Yeah, I would have Chark ahead of Mingo at this point. It is close for me. And go with your gut, because either one could have a big week. But right now, we've seen Chark getting involved a little bit more these past couple weeks after coming back from injury. There was a lot of reports that he had a good rapport with Bryce Young in the offseason. So Chark, I trust a little bit more than I do Jonathan Mingo at this point. So I would feel more comfortable trotting out DJ Chark over top of Jonathan Mingo. All right, we've got time for one, maybe two questions before Tristan Cook comes in. Then we will head to break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about this 2023 rookie class. Another guy that I'm a little more, he said, for now I have made the playoffs. Oh, okay. Awesome. So you're in the playoff hunt. You're looking like a contender. That's awesome. That's awesome. Because at this point, obviously a lot can change now that we're hitting a bye week season and injuries are starting to pile up. But making the playoffs, look, at the end of the day, you get in, who knows what could happen. I've seen the 6th seed win more times than I'd like to admit. I've talked about it, maybe not as much on here, but I know I've talked about it before, where I truly believe making the playoffs in a league is about 70% skill and 30% luck. So I think overall it's more skill than luck to make the playoffs. Then to win a championship, I think it's 30% skill and 70% luck, because all it takes is 1 week, one guy not performing like you expect, and you're gone. You're done. So to win a ship, I do think is much more luck than it is skill. I think making the playoffs is more skill than luck. So we'll have to see how it goes for you. Best of luck, Renard. I know I'm looking pretty good in a lot of leagues this year. Had some rebuilds last year I had to go through, and I still have a couple. But a good majority of my teams are in that contender window right now. So pretty excited. What are my thoughts on Pickens? Pickens has looked pretty decent the past couple weeks. He hasn't kind of crossed that threshold for me to where I'm supremely confident in him. But he has looked a lot better the past few weeks. We should be getting Deontay Johnson back, though. And that's going to be interesting. I want to see them play together, because for all of last week, everybody hyping up Pickens, and he had a great week. He really did. But that was without Deontay Johnson. Once Deontay Johnson gets back in the fold and they're playing together, what kind of workload is he going to get? Is it going to be more Deontay Johnson in those situations, or is it going to be more of George Pickens? So I'm interested to see how that plays out. And then how about that Tyjae TD? Yep, I was pumped. I actually put in a bet. I was really confident in this week, so I hit the overs on rushing yards, receiving yards, and the tutty. He performed very well for me this week, so I was thrilled for my guy Tyjae. And trust me, we'll be talking about him a little bit more once we talk about these rookies when Tristan Cook joins us. So let's go ahead. Let's take a quick break. Before we do, though, I do want to remind you guys about our friends over at Fantasy Alarm. That's right. You can get their all-pro subscription. The all-pro, not the practice squad, not the rookies, the all-pro squad. You can get that for 7 days, absolutely free. Figure out if you like it. If you like it, you just got 7 days of a service that you love. If not, didn't cost you anything. So check them out, fantasyalarm.com. That is fantasyalarm.com. Let's go to break. When we come back, Mr. Tristan Cook.
The Bears have to be one of the most inept franchises of any sport I've ever seen in my entire life. And they share the city with the White Sox, who are also inept. Like, that is how bad the Bears are. I just don't understand how you can go your entire existence and the quarterback that wins you a Super Bowl is Jim McMahon. You couldn't find anybody else.
They don't have a good history with quarterbacks, and they let him be the quarterback for a long time, too.
Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes right there. Mm-hmm. And you drafted Mitch Trubisky. They were right there. I there's a lot of pain in being a Falcons fan. The Bears are one of the teams I could argue they might have it worse, and they have a Super Bowl.
And
when the best quarterback in the past 50 years is Jay Cutler, you have a problem.
That's so funny that you just said that. We were talking about Jay Cutler the other day, me and my friend, and I was like, yeah, he was on, because we were watching the Colorado Rockies game against the Giants, and it looked like he was behind the thing. I was, yeah, well, he played for Denver most of his career. We looked it up. Chicago let him be their starting quarterback way too long.
Here's the thing too, is that Jay Cutler wasn't bad. Like, he was erratic. He wasn't terrible, though.
The poor man's Brett Favre.
I'm taking him over Justin Fields. I'm sorry.
I would.
But Jay Cutler led that team to an NFC title game.
Yeah.
That they lost to Green Bay. But he's gotten farther than anybody else. You want to know who the other starting quarterback was for the Bears in the other Super Bowl appearance they made? It was Rex Grossman. What are we doing out here? It was Rex Grossman, and Kyle Orton was the backup. How are you that bad? Bro, like, oh my God. Listen to the top 5. According to Football Reference, the top 5 greatest Bears quarterbacks of all time. Jay Cutler, number 1.
I can't believe it.
Sid Luckman, who last played in 1950, is number 2. Jim Harbaugh is number 3. Jim McMahon, the Super Bowl winner, is number 4, and he played there for 6 years. And Mitch Trubisky,
no way,
is number 5 on the list as terms of passing yards go.
I'm vibing with this. Welcome back, Dynasty Nerds. Let's go ahead and bring my man Tristan Cook on the show. Tristan, how's it going, buddy?
It's going pretty well. Busy, exciting last hour or so for me, but we're doing well. It's almost Thursday. Means football's almost, or NFL football's almost back, and yeah, things are going well, man. How are you?
Do you care to share the story of what happened the past little bit here?
Yeah, absolutely. So my 4-month-old puppy decided to eat like a 5.5-inch tail off of a stuffed animal, whole, like one long piece. And apparently he also ate the like microfiber cloth that you clean glasses with. He spent the day playing with some puppies at my mom's house, actually, and when no one was watching, he decided that he needed some more to eat. So got to go take him to the emergency vet. He threw all that up. And now he's passed out on the floor over there. Just the happiest little puppy that there ever was.
It's funny now that everything's okay. At first, I was like genuinely concerned. I was like, dude, that's not going to, like, actually, this is the second time it's happened.
It is, yep. The first time I didn't even know he ate something until I woke up at like 1 a.m. to him, like hearing him throw up, and there was a like 4.5-inch segment of a crab stuffed animal. So he's just apparently he's an eater, not a destroyer.
There you go.
So fun times with a puppy, but no complaints.
There we go. Very cool. Well,
that's why they make dog insurance, right?
There you go. Well, I thought we would bring you on. We would discuss this rookie class because it's been a really, really interesting start to the year for a lot of these guys. Greg says, Tristan, where are the previews? I don't know what he means by that.
I do.
Okay.
I write previews every week for my 2 of my home leagues for all of our matchups, and I didn't write them last week. I was a little busy.
So he's calling you out.
Finished, so he is justifiably so. They will be released before the Thursday night kickoff tomorrow.
I respect coming on a show like this and saying, like, look, you might be on a show and that's cool, like good for you, but you got your home league to worry about and take care of. You got to get
You
your
do,
home
yeah.
settled first.
I do, yeah. I actually took my first loss. We play against the median, so in that league, and I
Okay.
took my first loss. So I'm 9-1. You know, in that league, sitting pretty high. So if he's gonna call me out, I can let him know that I'm ahead of him in the standings.
There you go. There you go. All right. Well, let's touch on this rookie class. And I was trying to think of what we wanted to go with, guys that are at the top end, guys that are the most surprising. But I kind of settled on, let's start with the guy that you would know better than most. There's a rookie that was drafted by your Denver Broncos, and I know it hasn't been the best year for the Denver Broncos, but there was a fantasy rookie that has flashed quite a few times already early on in the process. We haven't got to see like a full game of this guy yet, but Marvin Mims has looked like a potential legitimate wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, a big-time playmaker. What's been your thoughts on him so far?
I've been pleasantly surprised for an otherwise terrible start to a season for the Broncos. He like I was a little surprised that they went receiver that early in the draft, just because Sutton and Judy have been like solid NFL receivers. I don't know that either of them hit the ceiling that they wanted them to, but they haven't been bad. But I guess their contracts and age make those kinds of things happen earlier than you might expect. But I've been pleasantly surprised. I mean, I think that with all the rumors of trades that Denver might be making and shopping both of those two receivers, we might get to see Marvin Mims in a more regular role. I really like him. I had him as my 7th receiver. I just checked my pre-draft rankings,
Okay.
and I had him at number 7. I've been, I was a fan of him when he was at Oklahoma. I think he's, a very, like, he's not exactly an outside big, jump ball kind of guy.
Sure.
But you don't need to be in the NFL anymore to be a top guy. So yeah, I'm excited about the potential that the Broncos might move one of the receivers ahead of him.
Oh, Tristan, it looks like you might have frozen up, bud.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I think you're back-ish. Go ahead and say something. All right, we might have lost you. Maybe check your internet, hop out, hop back in, whatever you need to do. Oh, Sean's saying his connection is going. Is it me? Sean, is it me? Am I good? I think I'm good. Okay, I'm good. All right. Well, we'll get him back here in a moment. There he is. Tristan, you good?
There we go. I could hear you the whole time, but yes, we are back and stronger, hopefully now more than ever.
All right, perfect. All right, well, let's get to some other rookies in this class. Let's start with a guy that you have been pleasantly surprised by. What's one rookie in this class that you're like, I either thought he was going to be good and he way exceeded my expectations, or I didn't think he was going to be good, but he's been surprisingly good this year?
I mean, it's a little bit of low-hanging fruit, but Sam Laporta. I love Sam Laporta coming into the draft. I was happy to see that he got drafted by a team that likes to feature the tight end, even though they had just traded away their seemingly really good young tight end in the middle of the season to a division rival. I was excited about the landing spot. I mean, that trade I was a little confused by, but when Laporta went there, I was excited to see how he might get utilized, and he has hit a home run or a grand slam or whatever you want to call it, because he's exceeded all expectations that I even had. I had him, I pretty high in my rankings, and I tried to get him in a lot of places. I didn't get as many Laporta shares as I wish I had, but but yeah, he's. I think. I mean, I heard on the podcast this week you guys were talking about your tight end rankings.
Yeah.
And I think did you say you have him at number 1 now?
I did. I made the moved him all the way up to my top tight end spot, and it was tough. But I mean, realistically, when I thought about it, if I had Sam Laporta and you came saying, "Hey, I'll trade you Mark Andrews," I think my answer would be no. I mean, between all the years and what he's shown us early, could he turn back into a pumpkin? It's possible, but man, he looks like he's that guy. Where would you have him amongst all tight ends right now?
I was thinking about that when I was listening to that segment, and I don't know that there's anyone that I would take over him either. Like if I had Laporta, I don't think there was any tight end that I would take straight up for him, just because he's producing as a rookie. He's younger than all of them. And like if you're contending, why would you try to trade down at production?
Mhm.
If you're rebuilding, he's the youngest of those top few guys. Like what really else can you be looking for?
Yeah.
So to me, I think that he's like right just a nose above Hawkinson. And Andrews is a little bit behind Hawkinson. Big fan of Mark Andrews, but he is clearly the oldest of those top 3. And so you just have to adjust accordingly. And he's not a difference maker in the way that Travis Kelce has been consistently, enough that the age of Mark Andrews kind of is outweighed by his production. He's a good tight end. He's a top consistent tight end, but he's not the Travis Kelce level production.
Sure.
At his age, it kind of weighs in a little heavier for me.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, and I'm in the same boat. I'm all in on Laporta. I wish I had him more in Dynasty than I do, but for whatever reason, I shouldn't say for whatever reason. I know exactly why, but I actually have a good amount of him in like best ball leagues. I have him in Underdog and FFPC, and it worked out because basically for me, it was either I'm getting Kelce or Hawkinson or sometimes Andrews, or I'm waiting and I'm taking, almost always it was some combination of Cole Kmet, I keep wanting to say Matt Laporta, Sam Laporta. Matt Laporta, a failed prospect for the Cleveland Indians. Sam Laporta, and Juwan Johnson. Now, 2 of those 3 are working out beautifully for me right now. 2 of those guys are top 5. Juwan Johnson, not so much, but you'll take it in best ball for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. What about the opposite? Who's been a little underwhelming for you so far? It's still early. I mean, most of these guys have played 4 or 5 games. Amon-Ra was doing nothing until like week 11, his rookie season. Jonathan Taylor, the first half of his rookie year was really disappointing. So lots of time for these guys to develop and be studs. But who so far are you like, I'm a little worried about this guy?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a little surprising to hear that after 5 weeks, you can't just totally give up on a player. But I think that for a couple different reasons, the ones I've been a little disappointed in at the wide receiver position, Jackson Smith and Jigba. He went to another situation behind 2 like very good NFL players, not necessarily the top tier fantasy players, but they're very good wide receivers in the NFL. So it was going in a team that doesn't exactly throw the ball a lot. Russ couldn't cook there, but maybe he just can't cook. Not that we need to get into the Broncos in general.
Okay,
but,
real quick, pause real quick.
Yeah.
Fair to say, but of all of the Broncos' issues this year, I would actually venture to say that Russ has been one of the slight bright spots on that team.
Yeah, the Russ this year versus the Russ last year is very much improved.
Okay.
I 100% agree with that. I mean, he also isn't the player that I think the Broncos thought they were getting.
Sure.
when they got him. Oh, it looks like Greg says go Hawks. This is a football talk, not a Atlanta Hawks basketball segment. He's a big Seahawks fan,
Gotcha.
but I have to remind him they are the Seahawks, not the Atlanta Hawks.
Well, DJ
but
Dallas is
yeah,
the greatest running back of all time.
that is fair.
Can't really see it, but
University of Miami legend.
That's right. That's right. The U, baby. All right.
But yeah, I think not to get way too sidetracked, but I agree that Russ isn't the biggest issue for the Broncos. But I think that he's closer to an average quarterback than one of the best of all time. And I think the Broncos traded for an Aaron Rodgers level and got not quite that level of a player.
I think that's fair.
But
I think that's fair to say.
But for JSN, he hasn't. It's like I'm by no means worried long term. I would have liked to see a little more. I know the injury, in the before the season slowed him down. There's plenty of things that kind of have kept him from producing in the same way that I wanted to have him produce. I had him as my second wide receiver after Addison. I really just loved Jordan Addison, and the landing spot there, was significantly better than the Seahawks one. So after the draft, I kept them in that order, but I still expected a bit more than I would have seen from Jackson Smith and Jigba to this point. At the quarterback position, it's kind of a toss-up between Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young for completely different reasons. Anthony Richardson, he's been dinged up in basically every game, and now is I believe they either put him on the IR or they are reportedly going to. And yeah, I'm worried that he's going to have a limited window of production. I think that's the one I'm the most concerned with of any long-term value. I think he's going to produce really well, but he might have I know we heard this comp a ton, but he might have a Cam Newton career arc where it's really, really good and then just falls off because the injuries stack up.
Sure.
So that's the one rookie I'm probably the most actually concerned with. Bryce Young, I kind of expected a little more from him. Just, I know not everybody was the biggest Bryce Young fan, and I had plenty of reservations as to his size and how he would look. And I don't think he's been awful, but he's been completely overshadowed by CJ Stroud. And so I think that hurts him a bit.
Yeah, it is funny. CJ Stroud for a lot of people was kind of the afterthought rookie in this class at the quarterback position. And now you could argue he's the most desired. I think most people would still want Anthony Richardson over him, but that gap is really close between the injuries and how well CJ Stroud has played through his first 5 games. All right.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about the running back position for a second. So if you had to rank your top 5 rookie running backs as far as dynasty wise, how would you rank them today? And how would that value match up to how you felt about them before the season started?
Well, the first one would be I just want to make sure I heard you right. You said just rookies.
Yep, just the rookie running backs.
Yeah. So Bijan is still easily the top one for me.
Yep.
I know Achane is, skyrocketed from where he was, deservedly so. He's looked really, really good, but I don't think that, I think there's a reason that Bijan was picked where he was and is insanely good. And I don't think that should change nor has it changed for me. Gibbs has dropped a little bit. He would be third. So Achane would be second for me. Gibbs would be third. At that point, I don't really know that I'm super excited about many of the others. Tank Bigsby, I really liked, and Tajay, I like. Those were my top 5, not in that order. I had Gibbs at 2 and Bigsby at 3 and Achane actually all the way down at 4.
Okay.
But Bigsby's stuck behind ETN, so he would be the last one in that. I still really like him as a player, but I just, it's a difficult situation for him. I was not a Charbonnet fan. I believe you were a big Charbonnet guy.
Jared was a big Charbonnet.
Jared. Okay.
Yep.
Well, that explains it. Can't trust Jared.
Yeah. No, for me, it was all Tajay for me.
That's right. But yeah, so Charbonnet never was in my top 5, and he still wouldn't be. But Bigsby is like closer to how I view Charbonnet than he was prior to being drafted, because he's stuck behind what seems to be a really dynamic running back that they're going to use in the rushing game a lot, but also, receiving plenty for ETN. And so he's got to be at 5 for me. Unless there's someone I'm forgetting. I would have Spears at 4, Gibbs at 3, Achane at 2, and Bijan at 1.
Yeah, I think our list are really, really close. I'm with you for sure on the first 2. I would definitely still have Bijan as a top guy, kind of in his own tier. And then I think Achane's kind of gotten his own tier now. So I think those 2 guys are kind of removed from everybody else. And then I'll be honest, they were neck and neck for me in the pre-draft process. I actually, nerd score wise, so pre-draft, I actually gave the exact same score to both Spears and Gibbs. And I'm kind of at that point right now too with them. Not because I don't think, Gibbs is a great player. Obviously, he got the high draft capital, but he's looked decent. I wouldn't say he's looked great. He's looked decent when he's gotten the opportunity, but I do worry about what kind of opportunities he's really going to get. Where on the flip side, it looks like Spears' role just continues to grow and grow and grow. Scored his first touchdown this week. And I would not be surprised at all if the Titans do not win this week, if they start to really consider, is it time to trade Derrick Henry? Do we trade Ryan Tannehill maybe to the Falcons? Reunite him with Arthur Smith. Do we move on from Nuke? Because they kind of already started doing that in the offseason. They got rid of Terrell Lewan. They moved some defensive pieces. So it wouldn't surprise me. But either way, I think in 2024, I think Spears is the lead back in Tennessee.
I think that's a good point. I agree completely in the sense of the top 2, like in their own individual tiers.
Mhm.
And it's really close between Gibbs and Spears for me. It might change in a week. I'm definitely not thrilled at Gibbs' usage, and the fact that Montgomery is looking good in his and isn't old. So from that standpoint, I totally can see picking Spears over Gibbs. I think that Gibbs is a more talented runner and receiver, personally, not significantly, but I think that he's slightly better at both than Spears is. And so, my hope is that will start translating.
Sure.
But we often, see talent isn't the only thing that matters for fantasy value. And from that standpoint, I think Spears is easily the choice. So I really do have 3 and 4 there, neck and neck. And yeah, I don't have any issue with somebody saying they would take Spears over Gibbs.
Yeah, I would ask for more in a trade, just because I think Gibbs' perceived value is still higher than Spears. But all it takes is 1 week. All it takes is Derrick Henry tweaking a hammy. All it takes, and it could change everything.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, I think that with saying that, I mean, if you have an opportunity to go get Spears, I have him in several leagues, thanks to you, because you talked about him a lot. Not that I wasn't familiar with him, but you wouldn't shut up about him. So I was like, all right, if I'm not sure, I need, maybe I need a running back here, or maybe I just need to get another Spears share. So I have quite a bit of him, but the offers that I've been getting for him, pretty underwhelming.
Sure.
So that makes me think that if you are, not having a Spears on your team and are looking to add him, you might be able to get him still at a pretty discounted price compared to kind of what we're talking about of his value.
Yeah, we were talking about him on the Dynasty Nerd show last night or 2 nights ago, or no, last night, whatever it was. Whenever I did that show, lots of, in the trade finder, lots of seconds for Spears.
Yep.
Which is like, most people paid a second to get him. So
Yeah, I think.
why would I move with
Yeah,
that?
like I think. I don't know how early he was going in on average, but I think that like anywhere in the second was pretty much where you'd see him go. Some people that really liked him might take him early. Some leagues that weren't necessarily super fond of him or whatever, he might have gone a little late. I think the latest I got him was like 3-1. I think it was a 10-team league, so
Sure.
it's still roughly the same spot. But yeah, most of the offers I've gotten are like a second or a second and a third from like a contending team, and it's like, why would I consider trading a player for the price I just got when he's looked pretty like promising, and I think the value shouldn't be going down or staying stagnant. It's a question of how far up it goes.
Yeah.
But we've seen him do it, so you're hoping that you could draft a player there that could be another Spear. So why would you trade him for those picks?
Exactly. So then the fifth spot for me, I'm gonna give it to Roshan. I've liked what I've seen out of him. I had a pretty solid score on him as well, and he's gonna probably get some opportunity here in Chicago with the injury to Khalil Herbert. So I think if anything, value wise, I think I would have to put him in my fifth spot of my dynasty rankings at the moment. And we'll see if he takes the bull by the horns or not. He can really solidify that fifth spot for me, or he could lose it, depending on how he performs. So big game this week between the Bears and the Vikings, because both teams desperately need a win. Vikings lose, those chance to trade Kirk Cousins might keep getting a little bit louder and a little bit louder. But
yeah, it might be a battle for Atlanta to see if they want Tannehill or Cousins after, if that happens.
I would love to see Kirk Cousins in an Atlanta Falcons uniform. Love to see it. Sean's the host tonight, but Heavy T, who's normally the host or the producer, he is a huge Falcons fan. And he was like, I don't want any part of Justin Fields or Kyler Murray, but give me Kirk Cousins. So he's all aboard the Kirk Cousins train there. So that would be an awesome fit, I think, for that team and that player. But the Bears on the flip side, they really need another win as well. The hard part is the pick that you should be the most concerned about getting Caleb Williams. Sean said, I am not a Falcons fan like Heavy T. LOL. The Bears, they got to really worry about that Carolina pick. So it's tough because Fields can do all the right things, but at the end, I'm a very big Justin Fields fan. I think he's a fantastic player. I think he's been like very underrated in this whole process from his rookie year where he fell in the draft to where he was valued in fantasy, and people just crapped on him early in the season. He's really seemed to figure it out. He's throwing the ball like a legit passer. But all of that being said, as big of a fan as I am of him, if you have the chance to take Caleb Williams, you take Caleb Williams. And
10 out of 10 times.
And that's the tough part, is he could do all the right things for the rest of the season. They have the number 1 overall pick, not 2, not 3, but if they have the number 1 overall pick, they're taking Caleb Williams, and they should take Caleb Williams. So for Fields, either way, he's kind of playing for either to make sure that the Bears pick isn't the one that is going to be the number 1 overall pick, but 2, he's playing, potentially auditioning for other teams in trades or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see how.
Right. I mean, if he plays well, the Bears don't end up with the first pick from their pick, but Carolina gets them the first pick. That you're going to have plenty of teams interested in him.
Yeah.
The interesting thing will be is if he plays well enough, and the Bears end up with the first pick via Carolina, just how big of an offer you could get for that Caleb Williams spot.
Yeah.
Because I agree, you take Caleb Williams even if you have everybody but Patrick Mahomes, basically, right?
Almost.
If you had I don't know how you would ever. Well, that's not true. There's
Josh Allen, maybe Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, there's a few, but the point is the majority of the quarterbacks I would rather take Caleb Williams over. But the haul that you could get, it would be really interesting to be, you know, I don't think they send those trades through Sleeper, but it would be interesting to see some
See
of
the
the offers that
Yeah, because I mean,
came through.
if he played like he was earlier in the season, you're getting a third for him. You know, you're not getting much.
Right.
If he's playing like he's playing right now, you're getting a first plus.
Right.
So
Right. But if they traded the first overall pick, you're probably getting 3 firsts or 4,
true. I mean, you're getting a ridiculous.
or like a top tier player and 2 first. Like that's it's a fascinating situation to see play out because, but you know, then you're the GM that traded away Caleb Williams.
Yeah, and you also have to start factoring contracts too, because now Justin Fields is in his 3rd year. So if he's your guy, you're gonna have to pay him soon. Whereas you'll get
Right.
4 years of a rookie contract of Caleb Williams. So it will be
plus the team option.
right. Exactly. Then you get the team option.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. We'll see. I'm excited to see how the picks play out and you know, see if the Broncos can somehow luck into the first overall pick.
Hey, the Broncos? They don't have their
Yeah.
first, do they?
No, I think they traded for it back, I thought.
Oh, they
I
did.
thought they got it back. Yeah, I thought they traded for it back with Miami or whoever had it.
Oh, I'd have to look. I
think
didn't realize they got their pick back.
I could be wrong, but I didn't think they had it, and I was looking at, you know, some random mock, and I saw the Broncos picking really early. And I looked it up, and I'm pretty sure they got it back in maybe the Bradley Chubb trade last year. I think it was something like that. They ended up because it was traded, if I remember right, to like not from them
Right.
to a team that they traded for it from.
Interesting. You're right.
but
Yeah, they have.
I-
It does look like they have their first round pick back. So that is really interesting.
So it'd be funny to be paying, you know, Russell Wilson $90-something million for the next few years and draft Caleb Williams.
Yeah, that would be very, very, very fascinating there. All right, let's touch on a couple other rookies. Let's go back to the wide receiver position. Zay Flowers overall has been pretty solid this year. Maybe not as much down the field, so lower ADOT stuff, but he's been producing pretty well for your fantasy football team through 5 weeks. What's your thoughts on Zay Flowers, and is he somebody that you think is a sustainable wide receiver 2 for fantasy football teams?
I love Zay Flowers. Like, I think he is the kind of receiver that the Ravens offense needs. Like Marquise Brown, I know he had a big year several years ago with Lamar, but he's, you know, he's small and slender. Rashad Bateman, he can't stay healthy. You know, Odell, he's not on the right side of his prime.
Right.
But none of them really are the kind of receiver I think that you want a Lamar Jackson, you know, top receiver to be. So I think I was a little skeptical when he went there, just because, you know, that isn't a pass first team. But the way they've been using him and the like style of player he is, which is, you know, not exactly the most physically imposing in size wise, but he's not afraid to take a hit, to, you know, he's not built slenderly. I think he's exactly what you want. I mean, I think his ceiling is limited because of the fact that he's not going to be a huge down the field guy, or at least especially in this offense. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I love Zay Flowers. I think that, you know, getting Lamar a weapon that he can get the ball to quickly, that can get yards after the catch. You know, he can do some stuff down the field a little bit, in the intermediate range more so, where Lamar can, you know, get him the ball there rather than having to do what I don't consider the strength of his game, which is throw the ball down the field.
Right.
I think it's a very good match. Plus, I just love Zay Flowers. He's just like one of the seemingly like coolest dudes in this rookie class.
Yeah, no, I've been very, very pleased with his output so far this year. And I think you're right. I think he's a really good fit for this offense, doing a lot of stuff closer to the line of scrimmage. So it's not like Lamar has to take a ton of time in the pocket to get the ball downfield. He's able to just get the ball out quick, get it in his hands, doesn't have to be super accurate. So I do love that fit there. We've buried the lead a little bit. Puka Nacua has been just a revelation in fantasy football and in NFL football and in any arena, period. I'll be honest. This one was a swing and a miss for me in my evaluation process. I did not see this coming in the least. But he's been fantastic. What are your thoughts on Puka?
Yeah, I had him as a excuse me, I had him as a sit this week. I do the weekly start sit article for the receivers. I was worried that Cooper Kupp was going to come in and hog all the targets, and he had a ton of targets.
Yeah.
But Puka Nacua still produced. It like I didn't see it coming either. I had him outside of my top 10 wide receivers pre-draft. I know he was I think he was a 4-star recruit out of high school, so he wasn't completely unknown in the football world, but not really on the NFL radar for the majority of people, I would say. The situation was perfect, but it also takes more than just situation to last, and he's seemingly doing that. It could be a little closer to the Robert Woods Cooper Kupp combination that we saw in LA before.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be closer to it than I expected. He didn't I still think he's going to be a little limited in the ceiling games that we saw in the first handful of weeks. Just because I think he had 7 for 71, if I remember right.
Yeah.
I bet on him for the receiving under, and he got it on the second to last play of the game in garbage time. I was not thrilled.
Sure.
But I think that, Kupp is going to be Matt Stafford's favorite target. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. So there's going to be games where Puka is a little more limited in his production just because Stafford's, going to be throwing the ball more to Kupp in, need to have it situations, or Kupp's going to be the top option. And Puka's proven through 1 week, albeit, that he's still going to get his. But I think we're going to have some more, 5 for 50 games or less, maybe even, than what we saw in the first handful of games before Kupp came back.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it because I'm not convinced he's a great receiver, but at some point you just kind of have to throw your hands up and be like, well, he's doing great things. So well, who am I to say?
Yeah.
It's wild to me. It is absolutely wild.
I'm trying to remember, not that they're anything close to the same kind of player, but Marcus Colston, kind of in the sense that it's he wasn't the greatest receiver ever, but he was in a situation where he was fed the ball, and he was a viable fantasy option for several years. I don't know. I'm sure there's been some since then, but that was the one that kind of sticks out in the wave that it's I don't want to be yeah, this guy's really good, because I don't know that he is.
Right.
But he's clearly producing, and at a certain point you have to be all right, you may not be the most athletically talented person in the world, but you're in a situation and you're talented enough that you're going to be able to produce.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's making it happen. I still don't fully get it. I do to some extent. I've talked about it before, where this offense is just, Sean McVay is truly a mastermind offensively. We've seen other guys talk about how easy it is to get open in his offense. So in that sense, if you're in this offense and you're going to get any sort of volume, you're going to be open more often than not, because they do an amazing job of scheming guys open. You saw Cooper Kupp in that Super Bowl, just he was open all the time. How in the Super Bowl, when you know that there's nobody else left, OBJ's out, they're only going to throw it to Kupp, and he still just continues to be open. It's not because he's a freak athlete. They've done an amazing job in that offense, making plays, scheming things to get guys open. So they've done a fantastic job with that. I haven't given you a chance to talk about your boy much yet. You mentioned how Jordan Addison has kind of been your wide receiver one through this entire process. So talk to me about why he was your wide receiver one, and I'm assuming why he still is.
Yeah, I mean, he was my wide receiver one prior to the draft. Um, it just I don't know, like it's hard to like I had him and JSN really close, so I don't want to victory lap by any stretch, but um, Addison he's just really 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 smooth, and I know JSN was too, but he did it on a slightly smaller, like over a smaller time period that had me a little bit concerned. I didn't love, admittedly, I didn't love Jordan Addison's size. That was one of my biggest concerns and kind of dropped him down for me. But aside from that, I think that everything he did, I thought was slightly better than JSN, who was my receiver too. He just like he was the Bolitnikoff winner and put up insane numbers at Pitt. It's not like and then he went to USC and we know that what that offense can do, and he looked amazing. And it was like and I know stats aren't the only thing that matters, but he was a guy that was always getting open. He was winning, at every level of the field. He could run basically every route that you want. He wasn't going to be a contested catch guy too much, but again, you don't need that in today's NFL, and that was really his only knock. But I don't know that I thought or think that JSN was an insane contested catch guy either. So it's not like, it wasn't like that was a big difference for him. But yeah, I mean, now with the injury to Justin Jefferson, I'm really interested to see how good Addison can be as the wide receiver one, or he might not slip into that role for the offense, but as a guy that's going to be much more of a focal point of the offense.
Yeah.
Because like I said, the size concerned me. I was happy when he went to Minnesota, because I knew he wasn't going to be the guy getting the top coverage all the time. It was kind of the T. Higgins role prior to the seemingly collapse of the Bengals this year offensively. But I guess prior to last week, but yeah, like I was really excited to see him getting, the second best corner, and getting like pretty vanilla coverages for him, because the defense was going to have to try to figure out a way to slow down Justin Jefferson. So he has been my top guy. He still is. But I don't know that his ceiling is insanely high either. Yeah. I think that he will be better on this team the longer he has a Justin Jefferson than if he's going to be the only guy on a receiving core.
That was going to be the next question I was going to ask you. Do you think his production will dip at all with Justin Jefferson out, or because of the potential increase in volume that'll kind of balance things out, or even put him ahead?
I think we're going to see more volatility. I think we're going to see more targets, which will lead to some games where he has bigger production. But I think we're also going to see him get shut down in tougher matchups a little bit more. I know the offense, talking about how they schemed in LA for Cooper Kupp, the same or similar offense that they run there in Minnesota. So they may be able to scheme him open in a lot of ways that, kind of negate some of that, the worry that I have there with facing better coverage as the top receiver. But I do think, I think it's going to be a little bit of kind of up and down throughout the next however many weeks until Jefferson presumably comes back. So that's kind of a non-answer, but I think that you're going to have some weeks where you're like, I started him and I'm super glad I did. And you're going to have some weeks that you're like 3 for 37. Cool. That like didn't do anything for me. And then you're going to have weeks where you're like, I don't trust him, and he's going to put up 25 points on your bench.
Sure.
So it's like, I don't love it, but I think that's probably more likely what we'll see than a, like, wow, this guy came out and is dominant, or he can't do anything.
Yeah, that makes sense. But Zara's here. What's up, man? Hope you're having a good evening. Let's get you out of here soon, but I wanted to ask one more question. Is there
Yeah.
anybody in this class that we maybe haven't covered that you want to highlight, either because, hey, we need to keep an eye on this guy, he might be a good one to buy, or I'm selling this guy, like I don't have any faith?
I mean, I could give you plenty of both, but my answer will be one that I mentioned on one of these shows right before the combine, actually, and that's Trey Palmer. I have loved Trey Palmer for a very long time, and was thrilled to see how he tested. Was not happy nor upset with the landing spot for the immediate future, but we saw him, perform pretty well, make some really nice catches. He beat Sauce Gardner on Hard Knocks. That was fun to see.
Yeah.
I think he scored in week 1 or maybe week 2. So he's getting
He's
on
had
the
2
field.
touchdowns
He's
this
doing
year,
some.
actually.
Yeah, I think so. But like pretty quickly getting at least some role in the offense. I think, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are certainly more established receivers and still better at this point in their careers, or at least going to be on the field the majority of the time. But neither of them are pinnacles of health either. So if you don't have Trey Palmer, he might be like, I doubt he's on waivers, but he might be, or you might get him as like a throw-in.
Sure.
I would love to get more Trey Palmer shares. I mean, I have a bunch of him because I drafted him in a lot of leagues in like the 5th round, but yeah, he would be my top guy to kind of go after, that I think could see either a bigger role as the year goes on, or like a bigger role in next year or into the future as that kind of the receiver room kind of turns over.
Yeah, I have quite a bit of Trey Palmer as well. I like the kid. I like the player. I hated that he went to Nebraska. I wish he would have gone like anywhere else. It feels like Nebraska is where receivers go to die. But all of that being said, he still made enough of it to make his way on an NFL team, showed out early. And I mean, Mike Evans is probably not on this team next year. So that kind of opens up a spot for a guy like Trey Palmer. I know they've thrown in a few other guys, one of them being Raheem Jarrett as well. He's gotten a little bit of run here and there, but definitely some open spots there. And Baker's played surprisingly well so far.
He has.
Maybe enough to get himself like a Jimmy G type of contract, depending on how the rest of this year plays out.
I have a quick question related to that for you.
Okay.
Who would you rather have as both, an NFL team, but more so as a dynasty player, Geno Smith or Baker Mayfield?
The right answer feels like it should be Geno. Like that feels like it should be the right answer. I'm trying to figure out if my Baker bias is
so
too far.
I had this conversation with a bunch of my close friends in one of my home leagues. Just maybe it was week 1, week 2. It was early. I think it was after, either before week 2 or right after week 2. And for me, it was Baker easily.
Oh, really?
I was like, I think Baker is a better quarterback than Geno Smith, and they didn't believe me. And I offered, it must have been early, because I offered like a 4th, and one of my buddies was like, I'm tempted to do it. He didn't do it. He ended up trading him later for, I think, a 2nd, because Baker has shown up. And I was like, I don't think Baker is anywhere as bad as he's looked.
No.
And Geno Smith proved that situation really matters for quarterbacks. And if Baker's found that in Tampa, he's younger, like the weapons are similar, like it's an offense I expect to throw more. I think that, to me, I'm going Baker in that situation many times. But yeah, it was an interesting question. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you posed it. Benzera said, tough part about Palmer is that Sleeper doesn't even have his picture.
He's a real sleeper.
He is the true sleeper on the Sleeper app. Well, Tristan, We know that you're I don't want to say a regular, but you've been on the show several times. So I'm sure a lot of the folks around here are pretty familiar with you by this point. But remind them again where they can find you on the socials, what you're working on. I know you're always working on all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, you can find me on the app formerly known as Twitter at the Tristan Cook. That's pretty much what I am. My handle is everywhere. I write 2 articles every week on the Dynasty Nerds website. I mentioned the wide receiver start sit that usually comes out like late in the week, Friday, Saturday. And then the other one, if you're looking for who we might be talking about next year at this point, is every Saturday morning I write a article called The Weekly Watch, which just highlights college players that are going to be playing in the nationally televised games on Saturday, and just kind of names to be aware of and know. And if you're watching football, what players to expect to see making plays for whatever game you have on. So yeah, those are the places to find me. You can always ask me plenty of questions. I was wrong on Puka Nacua, so I'm not always right, but I'll try my best.
Well, right now it looks like all 32 teams were wrong 4 and 5 times over
True.
at this point. So I don't think you're alone in that for sure. John, appreciate you, man. So Tristan, with that, we will let you get out of here. But thank you again so much for joining us. Always enjoy my discussions with you. I do apologize that we didn't have enough time to ask you some random colleges and where the guys.
That's okay. There's always next time. Thanks for having me. And yeah, it's fun doing this, and I'm sure there will be a time soon, and we can play some random college trivia.
Sounds good, buddy. We'll talk to you later.
All right, take care.
All right, that is Tristan Cook. Great conversation there about the rookie class, how it's performing thus far. All right, before we go to break, let me remind you guys, Fantasy Alarm All-Pro subscription. That's right, you can get it absolutely free for a week. If you want to do that, head over to fantasyalarm.com. That's fantasyalarm.com. Try out their All-Pro subscription. All right, let's take a break. And when we get back, we'll be having a discussion with the man, Dennis Bennett.
I like to eat my feelings. So when I'm like super sad, single serving pint sizes of Ben and Jerry's, I just start shoveling that in, and it makes me feel bigger and better. But so let's eat our feelings here. What we're gonna do today is we're gonna talk football players, food. We're gonna pair them up. Who is represented by what food? All right, I want to just shout out Hal Alexander in there for CMC. Christian McCaffrey is Rocky Road ice cream. A little bit of everything.
Yeah,
does it?
Going out.
I like it, man. You know it. I love me some Rocky Road ice cream. Bijan Robinson prime rib. You know what? Bijan Robinson prime rib with a baked potato and some cream spinach on the side. That's what I'm talking about. That is the King's dinner. And Bijan Robinson, I don't care if the dude from The Athletic says only 301, touches. You know what? In honor of Card Sharks, I'm going to say, guys, that I think that number is going to be a little bit higher there for Bijan Robinson. So get your knife, get your fork, you got your steak, you got your Bijan.
Yeah, that's what's up. You're on death row, and they say you get one last meal, and you just say Bijan Robinson.
Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, I'm totally down with that. Love it.
I got to jump in on one real quick because Mr. Scamper said Kareem Hunt is candy corn, and I actually had a player, Tyler Boyd, was going to be candy corn for me, and basically it's that nobody likes it, but it's always there. It's always there, and somebody always puts their hand in and grabs some and has some, and they're like, well, and afterwards they're like, why did I eat that? That's Tyler Boyd. He always gets drafted, and he's just kind of there, and nobody knows why. Nobody knows why they take him. Nobody knows where it comes from. Where does the candy corn even come from? Like, it's just there. It's just there.
Oh man, Sean with the sick beats. Thank you, Sean. There's some fire intros here. I'm all about it. All right. That guy asked, any hesitations about the Devon Achane injury? No. If it opens up any sort of buying window in your league, I think in most leagues it probably won't. But if it does, I'm all in. He is a hand in glove fit for that offense. It doesn't sound like anything that's going to need any sort of surgery or anything like that. So I am still all aboard the Devon Achane train. Chain and train rhyme better, but it's still Chan. Anyway, let's get Dennis Bennett on here on the Better Sports Network. Dennis, looking fly tonight, my man.
You know, working them streets trying to make that money.
Hey, look good, feel good, play good, right?
That's right. No, it was a busy day, had finished payroll, then I had to go out and do training. Then the boy had his Little League championship game tonight, and he was a starting pitcher. They lost 5-2. I got to be honest. He went 2 scoreless innings to start the game, and the plan was to go 2 innings. Now we've got a pitching staff that's 6 deep.
Okay.
But our top 2 that's out of like 12, 11, and 12-year-olds.
Dang.
We got a solid team, but our top 2 pitchers were out tonight for school functions in the championship game. Now, we beat this team twice in the regular season. Tried to get the game moved to accommodate it because they were school functions. We at one point thought we were going to be missing 5 kids because of school functions. We were able to field 9 players, but Cole went out there, man, 2 scoreless innings, and I'm like, man, just he can only pitch 3. And I'm like, I know the plan was 2-2-2, but man, let him go 3, and they didn't. And he was throwing heat, played great behind the plate, got hit by a pitch. I thought he was going to charge the mound. It was like, hit by the pitch. He just threw his bat down, ripped off his arm guard, threw it at the thing, looked at the pitcher, trotted down to first base. I was like, man, that's the most emotion I've seen him. It was great. He got hit by a pitch, got a walk off the best pitcher in the league, worked him to an 8-pitch walk. And and then he hit his final at bat, hit a smoking grounder to shortstop. Guy hit the ball so hard, the guy fielded it and then looked around for it. He didn't realize it was in his glove.
Oh my goodness.
So, but we lost. It was all fun and games. He really matured this last 2 seasons. It's all coming together for him.
Well, Jared Wackerly's in the chat, and he said that kids need to be more dedicated. Skip those school functions.
I know. I mean, we had a snack table. It was like a regular clubhouse. There were brownies and Gatorades and goldfish and
what was the school function? I mean, like I feel like
it was orchestra and football, 7th grade football.
Okay, football like I get. Orchestra, like. I mean, I'm guessing it's probably tied to your grade. Yeah. So that's how they're holding it over your head. But at some point I'm like, it's elementary school or middle school or whatever it is. Like you'll survive.
Yeah. It was still, the team played great. It was, I was proud of him and proud of the whole team. I mean, as it was 2-2 going into the 5th inning. Our pitcher gave up 3 runs in the 5th, and bottom of the 5th, we just hit the ball right at people. That's the breaks in baseball.
Happens that way sometimes. All right. Well, we have 10 takeaways. Stephen Bradshaw wrote 10 takeaways from week 5. And we thought we would break down some of those takeaways in the show here. And let's start at the tippy top here. Number 1, Jonathan Taylor skyrockets in dynasty rankings with his contract extension. Now, the timing was a little interesting because we weren't sure if he was going to play, if that ankle was holding up or not, all of these things. And so the excitement level for him to come back was pretty high. And Zach Moss crashes the party and has a career day in the first game back with for Jonathan Taylor there. So what are your thoughts on this, Dennis? What are we doing with Jonathan Taylor? Because the article talks about him skyrocketing and his job security is unmatched, but is it fully unmatched?
So, Zach Moss played 80% of the snaps, and Jonathan Taylor played 15%. I get you're going to work him back in, but Moss was going off. I mean,
He was.
It was one of those things. It's like it was a close game, though, and to me, it felt like as good as Moss was playing, it's Jonathan Taylor. Now, Taylor was RB1 2 seasons ago. Last year was an injury-marred season that bled over into this season with a contract issue. But he got paid. It was a nice contract. I think it was like
3
Nick
years,
Chubb's
$42 million.
extension. It didn't. Running backs aren't getting paid like wide receivers
No.
and left tackles and edge rushers, unfortunately. But it was a good contract, and it puts him there for the next 3 years. There's an out. Technically, Spot Track has the out at 2026 for $2.5 million, but at 2025, the dead cap is only $5.1 million. So that's not terribly cumbersome if he doesn't bounce back.
Right.
So, Rockets up. What he moved from 7 to 4? I don't know. He's only 24 years old right now. So while maybe bounces back, has job security, Steve might have stretched it a little bit with the Rockets up, but it's definitely worth being at the top of the list.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge Jonathan Taylor guy. Have been, since the epic debates of 2020 when me and Rich and Matt were going at it about CEH and Jonathan Taylor. And I don't even know that I was a huge Jonathan Taylor guy, but I had to dig my heels in so deep that I became a huge Jonathan Taylor guy. It was one of those situations where like, you know what? You're going to make me like him even harder now because you don't.
Speaking of Rich, I've never been more disappointed in the Dynasty Nerds podcast than I was today when Rich successfully pronounced Imari Di Mercado. I so expected him to say Calamari de Marinara. I was like, and he said it right, and I'm like, dang, this guy can't pronounce anything, and he nails Imari de Mercado.
Yeah. Very disappointing. Very disappointing.
No, I think Taylor's fantastic. I've got him at 4. I've got Bijan. In granted, these are my standard rankings over at Dynasty Nerds. I got Bijan at 1, Brees at 2, CMC at 4, or at 3, and JT at 4. Right now, I still like the potential. I think he's got 3 or 4 more years of high performance. We're seeing some of the elite backs really perform well up to 26, 27, 28, and he's 24 years old right now. So there's still some time for him to produce what we think he can, and they got a great young quarterback that I think will add to the balance, make that offense a little more difficult to key on Taylor.
Yeah, absolutely. I have him at the same spot. I have him as my running back 4 at the moment as well. And it sounds like we have the same running back number 2 as well, Breece Hall. Breece Hall, really big game for him this week, which was good because we saw the big week 1, and then ever since then it's been kind of meh, hasn't been great, and that's more so the offense overall than him. But it was good to see him kind of overcome that and have a big week. So Breece Hall right now in a dynasty league, what would it take for someone, if someone said, I want Breece Hall from your team, what would it take for you to give up Breece Hall?
I'd probably need 2 firsts and feel comfortable that one was top half.
Yeah.
He's what? He's 23 maybe?
Yeah.
And I know he's coming off the injury. And watching him run, there's a little bit of that hit you saw last year with J.K. Dobbins still, but we're only a year out, and his injury wasn't quite as bad as J.K.'s. And even though they bounce back and perform, there's still a little bit of, growth that has to happen, time to get full healed, fully confident. And I think we're going through that. I think Hall has, if it weren't for CMC, I think Hall would have a really good shot at being the RB1 this year, because as long as they're playing Zach Wilson, he's going to have to carry that offense. And it's not going to get better with the loss of Elijah Vera Tucker on the offensive line.
Right.
But Brees is going to be anything I think that happens is going to be because that offense runs through Brees Hall, and he just makes it happen.
Yeah, Brees Hall is a fantastic running back. Clearly, far and away, the RB1 in his class last year. He has a top 5 all-time nerd score for me at the running back position. So really, really like the player. It's good to see him come back healthy, because that is a real concern. We've had a lot of really talented running backs been going down lately. Obviously, we lost J.K. Dobbins. We lost Nick Chubb to 2 talented guys. We've missed Saquon Barkley and Austin Eckler for most of the season so far. Javonte Williams banged up again. It just seems like every running back is dealing with some sort of injury. So protect CMC at all costs at this point. Because
I'd like to see Brees get a few more targets. He's only had 2 each of the last 3 games. If he could get 4 to 5 targets a game, I think that would help the offense as much as it would help us for fantasy.
Yeah, he's got a tough matchup this week with Philadelphia. So I'm guessing this probably won't be a huge follow-up to his week against the Denver Broncos. But all of that being said, you're absolutely right. I'm still a huge fan of Brees Hall, and I think he'll be good for quite some time. Michael Anthony saying protect Bijan, also absolutely protect Bijan Robinson. Put those 2 guys in bubble wrap. Don't let anyone touch them. We've lost. I didn't even mention Devon Achane, who we lost this week, with just devastating.
Artie's trying to protect Bijan by not giving him the ball. So I don't know.
Oof. Truth hurts sometimes. All right. This has been a very running back heavy episode here, or article so far, because the next 2 is also about the running backs. Point number 3 this week from the article was Travis Etienne is an elite running back. Now, this is a really interesting take, and I'm not sure I disagree with it. I have not been the biggest Travis Etienne supporter. Last year, the up and down nature of his play drove me crazy. I don't like a running back that's going to score me 27 points one week and then the next 2 weeks have games under 8 points. So his up and down nature drove me crazy, but he's been a little bit more reliable this year, and he is getting a huge workload overall. So what are your thoughts on Travis Etienne? Is he kind of creeping into that, maybe not the top tier, but one of the top 2 tiers of the dynasty running back?
Yeah, I think he's probably at the back of tier 2 because he's getting volume. And I know myself and other analysts were expecting a little more out of Tank Bigsby. Mm-hmm. Bigsby has been terribly underwhelming. And unfortunately, that is what it is. So Etienne is sitting at RB4 in PPR leagues through 5 games. And that's a phenomenal return. His, week 1 was his biggest week with 136 yards rushing. Now, if he can get back up there in the 75, 80 yards on a weekly basis and grabbing 3 or 4 passes for 30 or 40 yards, and he's getting into the end zone, I think he's going to have some weeks where he goes off a little bit more. Mm-hmm. One of the things I didn't like about Etienne is I thought his vision was a little bit suspect, and his straight line speed was real good. But if he has to juke you, he can get a little off balance, and that slows him down. so far this year, what's happening is he's just tearing off big chunks where he doesn't have to juke people, and he doesn't have to. The hole is giant, and he, just about anybody can get through it. And as long as it keeps going like that, I think some of what helps that is that Trevor Lawrence is, well, not consistently getting 2 and 3 receivers involved. He's getting a couple receivers involved enough that it opens up that you can't just key on the running game. Ridley's having a good game here and there. We'd like to see more consistency out of that. Christian Kirk is still, doing what Christian Kirk does, being there in the slot and taking up stuff. Zay Jones is still getting end zone targets, and then you got Evan Ingram. So there's a ton of balance, and I think that helps ETN's game. I think ETN is maybe not getting enough credit for his power. He is a bigger back, I think bigger than a lot of people think, just because of the way he's typically been used. But a lot of times it looks like they're bringing Bigsby in to kind of be that hammer, and he's not succeeding. And I think you got to, if you need a yard at the goal line, I think you got to start and you're going to run it, give it to ETN. Let him hammer it in there at 220 pounds.
Yeah, he really has improved that area of his game. He still has been a little bit up and down this year. 20 points, then 5 points, then 19 points, then 10 points, and then the 38-point game this week. So still has been a little more up and down than I like out of my running back. But at this point, with all the injuries that we've been seeing, beggars can't really be choosers at this point.
No.
He's a guy that's producing overall, and you got to take what you can get. Takeaway number 4 here, Devon Achane is the truth. It doesn't look like he added in anything about the injury, so I'm sure he probably wrote this before all of that news really came out. So he might be the truth, but it's also true that he's going to be missing the next 4 weeks. Did you have a lot of Devon Achane? I know that you are team big wide receiver, big running back, so I'm guessing not a lot, but maybe.
I didn't have a lot. So here was my challenge with Achane is that he was being pumped up to the point that if he wasn't Warwick Dunn, he was going to be a disappointment. And I'm like, I struggle to bet on outliers.
Mm-hmm.
And even looking at the numbers he's putting up now, they're still outlier type of numbers. And so I have concerns about how he'll be able to do that consistently. Once we get out of the small sample. Now, I know that Miami offense produces these type of numbers. We've seen it happen with Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson and Salvon Ahmed. We even saw it happen with Myles Gaskin. Not quite to the extent that Achane has done. But we've seen those guys go into that offense, and as if they execute what that offense asks them to do, they've got big holes to run through.
Yeah.
Now, Achane just happens to have that extra burst, and it's paying off right now. But at 5'9" and 188 pounds, I think I'm curious, will it be one of these situations where, you have him for 10 or 12, 14 games every season, and it's dynamic for 8 to 10 of them. And you've got a couple others where he gets dinged up and misses some time, or he'll miss 2 or 3 games here and there. So that's my biggest concern. And I try to be injury agnostic. And so late in the process, especially in like best balls, I had started to gather some Devon Achane. And, because as much as I want to be injury agnostic, it's tough for me to completely put aside my biases.
Sure.
And so, while I did add some to the portfolio, I still hold out that concern that, he's not going to be able to withstand the punishment on any kind of that for it to pay off. He's going to have to hit a big run every single game, because they're going to start to cut his snaps back, because they have so many other guys that can be just as productive. And we're kind of seeing it now where it's like they got 4 guys in that offense that are virtually interchangeable. It's like, well, we're just going to play the 2 healthiest ones this week.
Yeah. No, the offense is truly incredible. And while I definitely think you're correct, I'm not sure he can keep up quite at this pace. I don't think we've ever seen a running back average 12 yards per carry over the course of their career. I do think this is more legit than not. I do think he's going to be pretty special when he's healthy, and that is going to be the biggest thing is how often can this kid stay healthy. But hopefully this was just a freak thing.
I'd love to see him get up to like 199 pounds and be able to keep this explosiveness and be like, oh, now you're crushing the BMI at 5'9", 199.
There you go.
Now let's rock it.
Little muscle hamster over there. All right, let's go to the fifth takeaway here. Josh Downs is rising up the dynasty ranks. So Josh Downs was a really interesting prospect. We had a lot of smaller receivers in this draft class, which I know you didn't like love.
All of them but Quentin Johnston and Michael Wilson.
Basically, and Jonathan Mingo. Those were the only ones with any sort of size. So Josh Downs, he had been okay, had some decent games, had some duds, kind of what you expect out of a rookie wide receiver. But big game this week, 15.7 points. What are your thoughts on Josh Downs? Is he somebody, especially with Gardner Minshew, it seems like his connection with Minshew might be a little bit better than his connection with Anthony Richardson so far. So we know that we're going to get Gardner for at least the next 4 weeks, maybe more, depending on if it's just rehab, if it's surgery, whatever's going on with Anthony Richardson. Is Josh Downs kind of a sneaky buy at the moment?
Yeah, he has kind of slid into the role I think that we expected he would have with Pittman and Pierce as the slot guy. What I think we missed was we didn't realize that Anthony Richardson would throw him the ball as much. And then when you get Minshew in there, they're like hand to glove. Minshew targeted him 12 times in the third game, but Richardson gave him 7 targets in week 1.
Yeah.
So they both are comfortable with what he brings to the table, and he's got enough burst. He doesn't play outside a lot, but he can play in 2 wide receiver sets. Alec Pierce is the one who's disappeared out of that offense, which I thought he would be a great match for Richardson's big arm, but Richardson is struggling with staying on the field. Yeah. So I think Richardson will be fine in the long run. But man, Josh Downs has just come in there. He's been quiet. He's went to work, and he's one of those guys I think that you look to pick up to have in that wide receiver 3-4 role on your fantasy team that is like he's going to have a good floor. He's going to get 6 to 8 targets a game, probably 40 to 70 yards and a touchdown every third game. And then he'll have a couple games where it just funnels to him for whatever reason. The defense is weak in the slot or something, and he's open all the time. Yeah, I think Josh Downs is. I think if they play 11 personnel in Indianapolis with any consistency, he'll be considered a starter.
Yeah, he was definitely one of those players where he didn't pop like some of the other guys did, because for a guy that traditionally when you see these smaller receivers, you think quick, speedy, fast, like those are types of things. That's not how I would describe Josh Downs. He's actually built fairly thick. Like he's like
5'10" and a solid 180.
Yeah, he's fairly thick for a wide receiver of his size, but he won more with his route running prowess. He actually was really good in contested catch situations, which you wouldn't expect out of somebody 5'10". But he was really good in those type of situations. So it just made him a very unique slot receiver. So I think he's definitely one of those guys that's under the radar a little bit, but should absolutely be on your radar as far as a throw in on a trade or something like that, because dynasty wise, he's definitely somebody that I think is going to be consistent. Will he ever be a true wide receiver 2 for fantasy football? Probably not, but you're right. That wide receiver 3 type of guy that just, man, he's just really solid. and I can count on getting 9 to 12 points every week out of him and feel good about it.
Yeah, I think there's an outside shot that he develops, along the lines of the typical Pittsburgh small wide receiver, Deontay Johnson, Antonio Brown, Mike Wallace, Santonio Holmes, those 5'10", 5'11", 185 guys. He's got that shot. Will it happen? I don't know. But yeah, he's certainly a fairly high floor guy that is a beautiful depth piece.
The only tricky part with him is he just doesn't have the speed that a lot of those guys had. And I think that's what could hold him back from getting to that point. But then again, one of the slowest 40 times we've ever seen out of a wide receiver is Keenan Allen, and he's been torching the league for years. So you never know how it's going to quite work out. Better Boss says Downs is a stud. AS asks, should I put in a waiver for Howell or Stroud? I had Richardson. I need a win. I am 2-3. If this is Dynasty, I'm shocked that he is not. Both of those guys aren't already owned, even in a 1 QB league. In redraft, I would definitely put one in on CJ Stroud. Do you have a preference there, Dennis?
I think I got Stroud by a nose. He's starting to really gel with that team. They just got both of their tackles back, and I think that's going to help Pierce, and so it will balance out that offense a little bit more. I like Howell. He does run a little bit more, but Howell feels to me like he's more volatile. He's going to have bigger games and lower games. He'll be up and down a little more versus I think Stroud still has a pretty good ceiling. His thing is he's just got to start converting touchdowns because he's not throwing interceptions. He's not making mistakes. He's got a good completion rate. They have to get it in the end zone.
All right. So number 6 here, I'm not going to really, I don't think we need to spend a ton of time on it. Jamar Chase is officially back. I'm not sure he was ever really gone.
Yeah. I don't think Chase was the issue.
Yeah. So I don't think we need to spend too much time on that, but this one is interesting. Ramondre Stevenson, number 7, Ramondre Stevenson is cooked. I find this one interesting because while the past 3 games have been extremely frustrating, one, that offensive line has not been good. It has been a very poor offensive line. And 2, it's been an extremely difficult schedule over the past few weeks. Whereas the schedule coming up for Ramondre Stevenson is actually not too bad overall. So where are you at on Ramondre Stevenson? Are you out? Is he cooked? Is he done? Or is he maybe a guy that I'm kind of leaning towards this might be my buy window where on a true contender, I might go out there and see if I can get him as my running back 3.
I think that's a beautiful move. We saw last year, he can catch the ball. He's good in the passing game. He's a good running back, but the team has severely underperformed around him. I don't think that Belichick has done a good job at all of providing the team with receiving options. And it's crazy because as good as they've been for 25 years, he's not ever really been good at choosing wide receivers.
Yeah.
That's always been something he doesn't do well. If you remember like Mike Shanahan, his issue was he couldn't pick cornerbacks. And that's when you saw him trade Clinton Portis for Champ Bailey because he's like, I need to get I keep drafting these guys and they stink. Belichick over the year, I'm going to sign Randy Moss. He's still got something left in the tank. He can't draft a wide receiver to save his life. So last spring, I got to be honest, I was seeing all these mock drafts with the Patriots drafting Jackson Smith and Jigba. I'm like, come on, man.
Please don't do it.
Maybe he changes their fortunes, but maybe it is the curse of Bill Belichick and New England wide receivers. So, but
yeah.
No, I think Ramondre is a beautiful target to go out and see if you can buy low on it, especially if you find somebody that's just depressed. They're like, I just don't know what to do with this guy. I believed in him. I thought he was going to be one of my anchors. And if you can get him as your RB3, and so you're flexing him bye week until he starts to pop off a little bit, and that offense, Belichick they're going to pull it together to some extent.
Yeah.
I don't think they're tanking for Caleb Williams.
Although maybe they should.
Maybe they should. I like Mac Jones. He's not a rising tide lifts all boats quarterback. He needs to have stuff going good around him. They haven't given him a lot. He's out there trying to make chicken salad out of chicken feathers, and it's not having a great time in the kitchen. Let me tell you.
No, he is not. Ramondre Stevenson, the rest of the year, the fourth easiest schedule amongst running backs according to Fantasy Pros. So really nice looking schedule the rest of the way there. Team with the easiest schedule according to Fantasy Pros the rest of the way, the Tennessee Titans and my boy Tajay Spears. Doot, doot. That's right. Hop aboard, Dennis. Hop aboard.
I like it. He needs to get more high leverage touches.
Yeah.
They still give it to Henry too much. They're still riding him. And I get it because Burks has been perpetually injured. The team just isn't playing great, but they got to why not give Spears a shot?
Well, we'll see what happens this week for Tennessee. It is going to be it's going to be interesting because they've got the Baltimore Ravens this week. They lose this week going into their bye right before trade deadline. They would still have the Atlanta Falcons play right before the deadline, but you're at 2-4 going into your bye week, and maybe even the Atlanta Falcons are knocking on the door saying, hey, like, is Ryan Tannehill available? Or, the Buffalo Bills might say, hey, is Derrick Henry available?
Right.
Or, it could finally get to that point where they just say, we give up. It's not our division anymore. We just lost to the Colts, who didn't even have their starting quarterback. We were lucky to beat the Cincinnati Bengals. We were lucky to beat the Chargers. Our 2 wins were not like nothing to get inspired about.
A blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while wins.
Exactly. The Bengals were just playing poopy, and the Chargers, they lost the game. The Titans didn't win that game. The Chargers lost that game. So I'm really interested to see how that all plays out. But of course, I have my own little bias. But I'm definitely rooting for that. Let's go on to number 8. Adam Thielen is a must-have for contenders. We actually talked Adam Thielen a little bit on the Dynasty Nerds podcast this past week. What are your thoughts on Adam Thielen? Because, man, he's been a target hog for Carolina and one of the very, very, very few bright spots for that team.
Man, I think that he's bringing it. He's like trying to show everybody he's not washed. I'd like it even better if they'd play Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
But no, so who do you think is harder to acquire? Thielen or Ramondre?
Probably still Ramondre because of the running back. But I get where you're going with this.
Because they're both basically contender buys right now. You need somebody, you need to get depth that's going to score, push you over the edge. I'm not sure. I'd probably pay slightly more for Ramondre than I would Thielen just because of the age. But it's Thielen, he's always had a nose for the end zone.
Yes.
He's just on a team now that doesn't get very close to the end zone.
Still got 3 of those tutties, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you extrapolate that out over the season, that's a pretty solid season.
It is. No, and I think he's going to continue to have a good year. He doesn't, he can play through injuries because he's a smart player. And if they can just get consistent play out of Bryce Young, I think that's going to help him immensely.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, so far he has had 2 the first week, a rough first week, only 3.2 points, but since then 7, 11, 7, and 11. So we know where he likes to get his gas, but he has done pretty well at being a consistent wide receiver. Weekly finish, wide receiver 16, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 20, and wide receiver 4. So yes, he has been fan freaking tastic in PPR leagues this year. Let's go to number 9. Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp coexist. That was one of the big questions coming into the week was, how do these two players mix? So far, the answer seems to be yes, they mix just fine. There's 1 week. We'll see.
Delicious, like vinegar and oil.
But they're working out well. Are you you team Puka Nacua here? You think he's still going to be able to be maybe let's lower the expectations slightly from wide receiver 1 to solid wide receiver 2, but do you think he's going to be able to maintain a solid season the rest of the way with Matthew Stafford?
So we have seen the Rams produce 2 fairly high-end wide receivers in a season, 3 times. In 18, Robert Woods was wide receiver 11. Brandon Cooks was 13. 19, Cooper Kupp was wide receiver 4. Robert Woods was 14. In 20, Cooper Kupp was wide receiver 26. Robert Woods was wide receiver 13. Kupp was running away with wide receiver 1 in 21. He was wide receiver 1. Last year he was running away with it. So I don't have my concern wasn't, can LA support 2 high-end wide receivers? It was, is Puka's skill set so similar to Kupp's that he'll get pigeonholed, that he can't be out there unless Cooper Kupp isn't? And that doesn't look to be the case. While the skill set is similar, I think that him and Puka, Tutu, and Kupp they cover the whole field. Mm-hmm. And that's the pecking order. Cooper Kupp's going to get his 12, 15, 18 targets. Puka's going to get his, 8, 10, 12. And Tutu's going to get his, 4, 6, 8, depending on how it shakes out in any given week. That's just going to be the pecking order. I think it hurts Tyler Higbee a little bit if they've got all 3 of them playing at a high level. And maybe it hurts Kyren Williams, but maybe it helps Kyren Williams because at 200 pounds, I don't think he was going to survive the season getting 25 touches a game.
Yeah, and you don't want those stacked boxes either. You want some lighter boxes for a guy that's a little undersized like that. So I still don't fully get it. I was talking about it with Tristan. It's still, the Puka thing still doesn't fully make sense to me, but at some point you just got to be like, it's happening. So It is what it is. Yep.
I think it's one of those things, they just line them up next to each other, and as they take their first few steps off the line, they each go different directions, and then they're making their reads whatever direction they go.
Yep, absolutely. There we go. Edward Rouse with his poo cup over there. Jordan Addison.
I think I saw 2 girls with that once.
Oh man, I remember in college that it was like, you ever heard of it? I was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, what? But Jordan Addison continues to impress. Number 10, the last one on the list. Especially with Justin Jefferson out, we know Jordan Addison's going to be featured. I'm willing to say featured. I know KJ Osborne's going to kind of move more into the X receiver role, and Jordan Addison's going to kind of stay in his role. But you have to imagine this is a slight increase in targets for Jordan Addison. So do you think Jordan Addison is going to be able to still be a solid receiver without Justin Jefferson kind of taking the bulk of the coverage away?
Yeah, I think so. Right now, So it's splash plays that are giving us this impression that he's being so great. He's playing well, but he's only 13.7% target share of wide receivers with 100 routes ran. That's 58th. 23.9% air yards. That's 40th. 1.65 yards per route run. That's 39th. He's 13th in end zone targets, though, so that's helpful. And 15.4% first read targets, and that's 63rd. So he isn't like making some otherworldly leap like Puka Nacua is,
Right.
but now he's going to have an opportunity to say, well, look, I've been filling this role for you. Justin Jefferson is gone.
Yeah.
Now, can he earn a significant number of targets on top of what he was getting? That's really going to be the big key. I liked what I saw out of Addison in college. I think I liked his Pittsburgh tape a little more than his USC tape. But I want to see, is he going to be able to demand targets? I think that's the thing like that Cooper Kupp does, and what Puka did when Kupp was out, and what Justin Jefferson does. They demand targets. And will Addison, again, small wide receiver, 5'10", 179 pounds or something like that, will he be able to go in there and start opposite of KJ Osborne? Who's going to be their number 3? I don't even remember now who's going to be their 3. I didn't look at the depth chart.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I'm not 100% sure either. I'd have to look.
But Hockenson is going to keep doing what he does. I think that Addison is going to, like, if you're holding Addison and you want to try to get more for him, you're looking at your team and you think, well, I've got good depth. Maybe I'm contending and I've got good depth. And moving Addison, if he gets hot before Jefferson comes back, gives me some additional draft capital in 2024 that is a late first round team that, champ, 10th, 11th, 12th spot, I wouldn't have that great a draft capital, then I think it might make sense to see if you can move him. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see no less than a 35-40% increase in targets. So if he's getting 6 a game, if he goes up to 8, if he I didn't look to see what his actual target number was, but I could see him having a blow up game here or there.
Sure.
Kirk's got to get a little more consistent, and KJ Osborne just seems to come out of nowhere and make plays.
He does. He's kind of always the thorn in the side, for sure. Parker said, "Is this a good trade, Mingo for Ramondre?" I would take Ramondre Stevenson there. I'm still not out on Mingo. I still think that he could be a solid receiver, but you have a potential impact player, assuming that this is a contender deal. But even if not, I'd probably still take Ramondre either way.
Yeah, I think it's one of those situations where if you're out on Mingo and you think Ramondre is going to have a bounce back because he's got the soft schedule coming up, and maybe you're a middle of the road team and you need to build your running back depth, and then it kind of falls apart on you, and then you go ahead and trade Ramondre for more than you paid in Mingo.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Dennis. Well, I think that about wraps everything up. Actually, we might even be over compared to when we normally are done. I just kind of realized what time it was. We're just talking like two good old friends talking Dynasty Fantasy Football back here. But Dennis, remind the good folks where they can find you.
You can find me at culture_coach on the X machine. Check me out on the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast. I'm here on Wednesday nights. I'm going to be doing the full host job next week, so swing by. Peter's going to join me. Got something special cooking.
Ooh, I love that. The two of you guys together are fantastic. That's for sure. And you can find me on Twitter at Dynasty Price. I will, as Dennis just alluded to, I will be gone next week. I am not going to be here. I'm going to be putting on the Speedo. I'll be in the Bahamas for just a little less than a week there. So I'm pretty excited about that. I've never been before. So that'll be my first time in the Bahamas. So
not gonna lie, I'm a little jelly.
I would be too. I'm pretty pumped. All you can eat food. Life is gonna be good, my man. Life is gonna be good.
Speedos and crab legs.
There we go. Speedos and crab legs. All right, guys. Well, appreciate you guys tuning in. You'll get Dennis back next week. You'll get me in 2 weeks. Until then, we'll see ya.